All right, let's take a look at one of our receiver nodes, the tick receiver node, and also a couple other new nodes. Like we're going to take a look at maybe delay and random color and all that good stuff. So if you remember on our camera, for fun, we just created a play node here. And what I did is I deleted everything out of it. What I did here, actually, let me just go ahead and do that again, is on my marble, I right-clicked and I went and I hit create child entity. And I'm going to name this area light, or I'll just name it point light. We'll go with a point light like last, like what I had in my scene. Then I'm going to add a component, and I'm going to just type in light here, and essentially just add a point light to the top of my sphere here. Okay, so there's our light. Now, for the diffuse multiplier, if I increase that, let's say 300%, you can see that's pretty strong. There's other properties to this. If I kind of go to this little section here, this little sliver on the edge, and I go to my right, you can see that it can increase the distance at which my light can broadcast light information. And let's go ahead and just change this color for a second. We'll go with a light purple. All right. So now when I hit Control G, you can see, oops, let's make sure that is added. It follows my ball around, right? So as I move my thing, it kind of goes through. And I should play with that speed a little bit more, because if I move too quickly, the collision doesn't necessarily detect it as strongly. And we want to kind of create this marble game. Ooh. All right, so we've got that going on. Now let's say I want to access this light and create like a strobe light effect to bring attention to this marble, right? Well, there's a couple ways we can reference this light. And let's say we, let's go to our camera and let's grab our play script. Let's say we want to reference it from this script here. Well, what you can do is you can actually select that point light and right click inside your graph and go to reference selected entity. So this is very similar to what you can do in Unreal if you're used to Level Editor or any of the other scripting stuff where you just right click and create a reference. So now we have a reference to this point light. There's also other ways to reference lights, for example, through the source slot on our sender nodes, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's create a receiver node that is going to check time or tick between frames. So the way you can distinguish between receiver nodes and sender nodes is the color. So this is you'll notice it was light blue for this. And if I want to grab a sender node, let's say anything else relating to time. So if I type tick again, you can see here it says get tick order on tick. Well, they're donated by a dark blue color. So if I click on that, you can see they're very different. And one broadcasts information, the sender node, and the receiver node receives information. So for example, this is receiving the number of frame counts before it spits it out. So let's just quickly do what we always do and just grab a print to test to see if this is working. And so like let's go output here and let's broadcast the time, right? So here's our value. And the one thing you know is it'll automatically append the word time to the value. So if I go in here and I hit Control-Shift-C to clear this, and I save this, and I hit Control-G to play this, see how it says time, and it's giving me that time delay? Well, let's say we do, let's add a delay, and we'll add a regular delay, because it gives us these other parameters, not just the on tick. And let's say we're saying, okay, well, for the value, I'm going to go with the elapsed value here. Let's get rid of this for a second and connect this. And we'll connect this, and we'll print that out here. So now what we're doing is on each tick, we hit our delay node, and we're going to delay the time by 1 second. Let's say 2 seconds, okay, before it prints out. So I'll write like after delay here, and then I'm going to hit Control-S, and now let's clear that. And again, if you don't see this at the bottom, just hit your tilde key. Now I'm going to hit Control-G, and you can see we're waiting. We're going to wait after. You can see now it says after delay, there's a 2 with the time it took between frames. So it's not perfectly 2 seconds, but it's showing the time in between. See that? Now, I'm going to actually break this for a second. And actually, let's leave our print over here. Now, let's say we want to, at each frame, we want to generate a random color. And once that random color hits, we want to set that color to this point light. Okay, so I'm just going to right click here and I'm going to start typing random and color. All right, so here's our random color node. And all I have to do is go from out to in. I don't have to connect any of these for right now because this random color will automatically generate a random color within those values. And what I'd like to do is, and we'll bring this delay back in a second, is I'd like to get the color of this point light. Now, or set the color of this point light. So if I right click here and I just start typing set color, you can see it's going to set the color of this point light from this output here. Okay, so you might be like, well, how do I adjust the color? Well, that's where this output connection goes into this input here. And we should talk a little bit about how this is set up. So just kind of going from top to bottom, these are called our execution inputs. This is our input execution, and this is our output execution. This is the name of our node. The subtitle usually donates what it kind of does, right? Returns a random color. So see if I highlight over that, I can kind of like, and sometimes if you go down here, you'll notice it might not work. But if you go over the links or the actual names on the node, you can get an actual definition of what each one does. So if I go over this random thing, it says returns a random color from a min to max value. I'm giving it full like carte blanche to do whatever it wants there. So it's going to set the color of this point light. Now if I save this and I hit Control G, you can see it's like kind of strobing. Let me move this a lot lower. It's strobing like crazy. See that? Well, what I'd like to do is bring back the here, let's drag this up a little bit. Actually, I might be able to, you know what, we'll just leave it as a separate thing so we can see it better. We have this delay here. And what we can do is connect this delay, the in and out of our delay here. And I'm going to hold Alt and break that connection. You can also right click on it to delete the connection. Like say you want to delete that one, you can go to delete here. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. Now what we have is we have a 2-second delay. Let's do 1 second so we can see it a little bit quicker. I'm going to hit Control S to save. Now let's run that. And after 1 second, you can see it switching the random colors. See that? As our ball moves around, it's got this strobing effect. All right, so let's talk about one other way to reference that node, which we've kind of done before. And what it is this is a very nice way if you're going to be referring to this light a lot, to have this reference kind of just hanging out here. But you'll notice there's also this source slot. Now, it's set to self, which means we want to set a random color to the camera. But it doesn't really have a camera parameter. What we want to do is get that light. So all I have to do is click this little target reticle here, and then go over to my point light, and you can see it'll refer that point light. And when I save this and run it, it's going to give us essentially the same effect. See? So now we have that same effect. So that's two ways of referencing a node.